Hi, I'm Aaron here in your Bowtie Treasure Studio. Thank you for watching. Be sure to let us know where you're watching from, whether it's on the East Coast or across the coast, wherever it might be. We're always happy to have friends here hanging out with us, especially featuring Would You Bend moldings featured on the Dixie Belle website. I'd love for you to go check those out. And tonight we're going to be featuring at least 3 of those. This project behind me, I bought it in an estate sale because it caught my eye. I didn't really know what it was. I've looked around a little bit and I've got some mixed feedback on what it is. If you know officially what you think it is, let me know. But I'm going to go with just a small chest. It was on the ground at an estate sale in front of a bed. I think it's too small to be on the floor, but maybe it's just a humble chest, but I think it has more function because there's some things missing on the inside. Anyways, I'm just going to go with the fact that it's a nice small chest, storage cabinet. Maybe some places I looked at, it's called a document chest, but I'm not too sure. Bottom line is, I thought it was cool. It caught my eye. It wasn't a lot of money, but there was some missing pieces. There was a decorative element that probably had been destroyed in its lifetime. So tonight we're going to focus on Would You Bend molding, not just decorating, but maybe what we would call repairing, something that's missing. It's so versatile, so beautiful. I've already applied 24-27, and it's a 2-piece set and really nice. So I'm going to show you real close. That's the 2-4-2-7, and it's a 2-piece set. So it worked really great because, again, these were damaged, missing sections. I actually flattened this out. And then in the moment, we're going to put 705 over the raw wood there. So, and then the middle needed something. It didn't look like anything was missing here, but it needs something. And I wanted to use Dixie Belle's 2152. And I'm going to go this way. You let me know. I just think it kind of looks nice with the things going up. To me, this is kind of a shell motif, and to me, I think it needs to be up. But if I'm doing it totally wrong, let me know. But I think that would be kind of nice and look really good with the other decorative features, so that's where we're headed for that. And I've already applied these, so those are good to go. And the gray color is Dixie Belle's Gray Boss. The stain on this piece is totally typical for it to probably bleed on me. Meaning the tannins would go through my paint, so I wanted to do that. But let's start first by putting on this trim, and I think that would work really well. I have my heat gun, shouldn't be too loud, but we're going to get this heated up. And then probably the next best thing you need some good wood glue. This is just the original Type Bond glue. Anything other than that, I'm not going to recommend it, okay? So make sure you have something like that handy. If you don't like, and I've got my heat gun on right now, if you don't like, and you're worried about your fingers, you can always get some pliers or something else to keep your hands away from it. And I'm only heating enough that I really need for one strip. And we'll come back little by little and heat that up. If you want to know if you're heating it up, sometimes you can hold it upside down. And as the Would You Bend starts falling down, you know it's pliable, it's going to start falling here little by little. And you know you've got it hard enough because that rope's going to start dropping. And you don't need to sit there and keep touching it, but it's definitely at a point where now we're getting soft enough that we can make it work. As soon as you stop heating it up, it'll want to start going back to its original shape. So you can see there. So let's just cut off a decent amount of this, a little bit extra. And I'm just using some scissors, and we still have plenty to work with. Now I can come back and give it a little bit more heat. I like to hold it up in the air because, one, I'm not heating my table, and I also can see it starting to fall and know that it's got plenty of heat on it. Maybe switch ends. Again, that's working well. Let me show you what I was talking about, pliers. These are Craftsman one, but really any can do. You can hold just a light pressure, just enough that you don't have to touch it, and then you can heat the whole piece up. That works really well. If you watch others like Solly Joe, but sometimes people will use griddles to heat up large portions. And so here, once you get it straightened out, you can get a little bit more of a measurement. And now I can go ahead and kind of get a rough idea of where to cut this. And I'm just gonna make a mark. And this is a retractable knife. The blades, I've already popped it a few times, so it's a little shorter. But you can cut this. I'm just gonna go straight down, keep it away from your fingers, be safe. And we can, like I said, while you're not using it, it's gonna heat back, it's gonna harden back up, so every once in a while, that's it. Yeah, I'm making a kettle there. Really love how all these pieces are gonna work together for this project. And there we go, there's that first piece. And look how perfect it's fitting into my missing panel. That's really great. You can, here's an option. I can just check all the other ones and see if it works. I can just use this for all this as a measurement for all the pieces. So that's an option, you can do that too. And we might as well do that. So I'm gonna set that one down instead of gluing it on. Let's go ahead and heat up the next one. We're gonna use the same technique. I love that you can bend, you can slightly, I would say, stretch it, you can sand it. I've cut these things up into multiple pieces and sanded them, and they're just really great product. And like I said, they're great for decorating a piece, and in my case, they're decorating and repairing. By repairing, meaning it's missing and I need to fix that. So we're gonna stick that right on there and put that right up there. All right, now, by the time that you do that, what I just did right there, the wood you've been wanting to go is starting to, needs a little bit of heat so it can get back to pliable and to the point that you can push it in there. So I'm just giving it a quick heat. I don't want to push while I'm using the heat gun, so now that's soft again, now I'm just using my finger to push it in there. I don't have to aim for perfection on this piece. I just need something to hide the messed, the broken section. And what we might say, a magician might say, divert the eye, right? Great comment there. So look at that. It really hides that mess. When we're done, it'll look like it was meant to be. If you really wanted to get crazy on this, I could put some caulk in there and smooth it out, but I'm going with it. We're going to leave it just like it is. Okay, I think we're good there. And because it's really good glue, it's going to dry quickly. It's really great stuff. It never lets me down. Okay, so those are fantastic. This is working really well. And let's do one more and then we will put some paint on this. So this again, where did I put my number? This is 2152. Like I said, they're scrolling across the bottom. If you'd like to look these up. Of course, the larger, the thicker, the bigger the piece, a little bit, the more heat you're going to want to apply. This one I'm being a little bit messy with it, but I am going to go back with my finger and just give it a quick smooth out. Some glue will seep out, and I usually wipe those off. Sometimes I'll use like just a cheap craft brush to get some of the excess glue off. It just depends. When it dries, you can actually paint over this glue if you wanted to leave it. Wow, it sounds like it's raining outside. That's shocking. We literally were just mowing a little while ago. It's a beautiful day in Pensacola. I already have a pencil mark. I cheated for where this is going because that's the last thing I wanted to do is wing it with you all. But finding a good central point for that. So yeah, like I said, the glue is already seeping out, and I've got a brush, like I said, just a cheap craft brush that I just like to use. I'll take a mister bottle sometimes and I'll just mist the end of it. And it's really nice to be able to, let's give this a quick heat and make sure it's nice and soft, and give it a last push. I'm not sure if several, but you can get some of these moldings in one piece, and you can also get them in a set. I have an extra piece that I can use for another project, so that really gives you good value, and you can buy a set because you can use it for another project. I'll just give you a little tip too, because you can cut these. You can actually come in here. Let me see if my camera's going to pick this up here. There we go. You can actually cut this where, like, if you just want the shell and you just want to separate you can break this up into 3 pieces if you wanted to. And I've done that a few times. Just gives you almost more for your money, because sometimes they may not always be the size you need. See how I'm just running that in there? Gotta find my rag and just wipe it off on a rag. And I'm just wiping off some of that extra glue. This is optional. If you don't want that glue to be part of your surface, just wipe it off. You can use probably a wet Q-tip. The brush just gives me a little bit more of a sturdy surface. Now, because I ran the heat gun on this, it is a little sticky already, so I'm going to put my misting bottle on it just to loosen some of that up. So I'm just fine tuning, cleaning up, and that's all I'm doing right here. Some of this is, again, just optional if you'd like to be a little cleaner with the edge. All right, we will let that dry. And by dry, just a few minutes. By the time we get back around to it, it'll be ready to paint. So we'll transition to the paint mode. I hope that's, if you haven't tried would you bend moldings that you consider looking at, you can get, like this is only 2.5 inches. You can get really small ones. You can get flowers. All right, so with this small chest, it is decorative all the way around. If you see the feet, so this is meant to be painted on both sides. If you ever ask, should I paint both sides? Well, yeah, if it's got decorative elements, yes. But I didn't, this would probably be the back towards a wall or a bed, so I'm not gonna put any wood you bend molding on that. And, but I definitely wanna accentuate it and bring out the details. So, okay, to be honest with you, straight up, I don't necessarily have a finish plan for this, meaning I have burlap and I have buttercream. But I don't know exactly if I want to blend, dry brush, smudge it, fudge it, whatever. So let's do this. Let's just get some paint on there. I think some blending would be nice, but for now, I think let's just give it a coat of burlap and let's just kind of let this piece develop. I have Dixie Belle's Glaze, Van Dyke brown glaze that I think is going to accentuate the wood you bend molding. This piece, and the purpose of me putting it, this piece is all about accentuating the decorative elements. And blending is nice, but I really want the wood you bend to stand out, and that's where I think the buttercream is going to come in. So let's do burlap as the body. And we'll let buttercream help accentuate, and then we'll also let the Van Dyke glaze do some of that too. So you're going to see this come together pretty quick. Testament that you can really do some nice things in a short amount of time. I'm very confident. We're about halfway through. I'm confident we can get this mostly done tonight. So if you're interested in hanging on for the ride, stay tuned, grab some popcorn. All right, so that is it for burlaps. Okay, let me just, forgot to get my bucket of water tonight, but that's okay. We'll clean that brush out later. So let's do this. Let's focus on the front for the sake of, this is the focal point tonight. And if I don't get to the back, that's okay. I picked out Buttercream. Main reason for Buttercream is because Buttercream is a soft, light cream. You know, I could use cotton or fluff, but that's just too white. There are some slightly darker buttercreams that are creams, like you could use Sandbar, but this one just really is a nice, beautiful cream color. So I'm going to use Dixie Belle's, one of their craft brushes. You can buy these in a set. And I just like the nice, so like this is the 1 inch. You can just see the amount of vastness that the 1 inch has compared to the small one. So, you know, which one is going to do the work in the space that you have. So there's two approaches to what I'm doing that you can think about. One, you can do this technique before you do the glaze, or you can do it after. I think I'm going to do it before because the glaze is going to knock down the intensity of the buttercream. This is all about making it look older. So I'm just adding a touch, and this is purely experimental because we don't know exactly how it's going to work out. Some options you could do. You can swirl it in, you can brush it in. I'm going to put just a little bit of paint on there, and I'm just going to highlight it. You see that happening? I'm just hitting the edges. I think when you do wood you've been molding, you need to have a plan of how you're going to accentuate it. Because without that, to me, it's like, what's the point? For example, you can see the difference here. So light's hitting both of those, but this one, because I put burlap, it's highlighting even more. Here, it's just flat, doesn't have a lot of character. So I'm just trying this out, knowing that in just a minute, I'm about to put some glaze on here, and it'll tone it down a little bit. I just want that, I want the wood you've been molding to be the star. So I'm just kind of dry brushing. If you put too much, you don't like what you did, then put some more burlap over it. It's not really a problem. And I might even just go ahead and hit some edges. This is really just experimental. I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but that's the fun of what we do, right? I'm going to wipe a little bit of this off. I don't really want the color too far out. But maybe we do. Let's just own it. I'm just going to put a little bit more on there. Almost like we're doing faux distressing. How about that? We're just going to own it. Notice I really haven't put my brush back into the paint much at all. Remember, we're going for kind of a rustic, aged, worn, weathered piece. So this is one great way of doing it. We'll not put any in the inside, but I'm just adding a little bit of interest to that. And the more you do by hand like this, the more likely it's going to feel worn out by time as opposed to machine worn. Does that make sense? Like you're doing things that make it look like it naturally wore out over time. And we're not going to go far with this as far as tonight. So I wanted to do more, but we'll just kind of filling this out a little bit. If you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, I have a lot of techniques on pieces there, which includes even a little bit more of this kind of technique in action. So I encourage you to go over there. I'm getting upwards to about 100 videos now, so quite, I'm going to say, extensive library. A different variety of techniques that can be helpful to you. Okay, so you get the idea of how I did that. So just kind of lightly dusting that faux distressing it with paint. And that looks pretty good. Okay. Tell you what we'll do. Let's do just a little bit more. Look at the time. We're doing pretty good. Got about 20 more minutes. And we will just hit this one because while I'm working on this one, I'm letting that dry a little bit because I really want this one to be the center star. It's the star of the opera. We're going to come back and hit this with some glaze too. I thought about using Voodoo Gel Stain, but glaze and dirt are really a great combo. So the premise here, apply it, but we're going to tone it down with a little bit of the glaze. If you wanted to, you can do the glaze first and then come back and do this. It just depends on how clean, crisp, and popping you want this to be. You see how I'm holding the brush at an angle, not flat sometimes? I'm just hitting the edges, and then there's times you can actually flatten it out. Some of the paint's in there is still wet, so I'm going to pause on that. The lid on, and let's work on the glazing a little bit. Okay, so let me introduce you to Van Dyke Brown. Van Dyke Brown is a glaze, and glaze has a little bit of top coat to it. It feels different than chalk paint, and Dixie Dirt is a powder. This is basically something that helps add a little bit of what we would call grunge to it. Okay, so it's just a powder. There you go. But it needs a binder. It needs something to stick to. And the glaze has a little bit of that stickiness that works really well. And you don't need a lot of this glaze. What I like to do is, one, I like to have my misting bottle handy. I like to work over wet. I don't top coat first. You've been watching me tonight. I'm not top coated. So let's start on the corner. I'm going to mist, apply, wipe off. So mist. Oh, and then one other thing you might try, let's do this. Let me get one more brush. This is the French tip, and this will help me blend that in. So we're just going to kind of move this into the crevices. In fact, let's go ahead and go over it a little bit. Remember, we're trying to make this look aged, worn, authentic. That works really well. I'm going to grab another brush, and I'm going to dip into the dirt, and we're going to add a little bit of dirt in there. I demonstrated this on a vanity desk not long ago. You can see it on my YouTube channel. So I'm using the French tip just to feather that and soften the edge. I'm not going to wipe this off, at least not all of it. So you see how I'm just kind of fading that, vignetting it. That's, okay, so compared to the side not done, flat, not very interesting. Now it's going to start looking. So let's pull you in even close. So I want you the buttercream, still there, but now it's a little toned down. But look at how everything's working really well. So we're adding depth, character, age. It's just going to pop. That column pops way out. Really pops out. Now I have a wet rag here, so occasionally you might see an area you just need to clean up a little bit. And notice I'm only working on one section at a time. I don't want to apply glaze all the way across and then it starts drying on me. And because you are working with dirt, it's a powder, it sometimes will fall in places you might need to wipe off. That's fine. So remember we cleaned that up. Let's work on that. There's kind of an 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 inch gap here where there's a piece missing. I'm just going with it. So let's mist. Remember, that's kind of my key moment. You do not have to mist, but the glaze works better when it's on a wet surface because it just slides better. Remember, it has kind of a top coat feel to it, so it's a little slippery, sticky. Okay. And if you feel like it's drying out on you, then you need to mist because you want to keep this wet. But glaze is about the only thing I use dirt with, but you probably could still use it with other things, but I just find it sticks and binds. Oh, and then of course, got to get it in the molding. So I'm just going to swirl that in there. Yes, I'm covering up my buttercream, but remember, we're going to wipe a lot of this off. Okay, so it's a little messy, kind of rough, but we're about to fine tune it. Let me get behind there a little bit. All right, French tip. This is where you're kind of smoothing it out, feathering it out. Wipe off the excess, so you see I'll hold that rag nearby. The buttercream is going to start turning a little bit brownish because we're mixing glaze into it. You see how I'm feathering that glaze out? This little... You can use other brushes like the Belle brush. It's also natural. I just like when I'm doing this kind of feathering, blending. I'm not really blending, I'm feathering, vignetting, because I'm not mixing any colors. So I'm making those. Now here's where I'm going to take my rag. I'm going to wipe off a little bit of the high points of the molding. How much of the glaze you wipe off is totally up to you. How much you put on, up to you. If you put too much on there, you can dab it and go back and soften it out. If you don't do the softening part, you'll see a lot of brush strokes because you're dealing with a very thin liquid. So just wipe it off. You probably could do this with a 1-inch brush. And then go back with your wet rag, highlight some things that you don't want to be too hidden, maybe some edges. Let's say so this is before, and this is artistically after, right? But how incredible is the wood you've been molding helping this piece from being, one, broken and damaged to now look like it's part of the piece. And you know what we forgot to do? We didn't even put any dirt in here. It's still a little wet. Let's do that. I'm just going to put some down at the bottom. Treat dirt like dirt, meaning where would dirt settle over time? Maybe here and there. It doesn't have to be everywhere, but along the bottom of things. It's still a little wet, like I said. It's basically it's a faux finish kind of technique. The faux means you're simulating dirt has collected over time and they just couldn't clean it out. Right? I mean, that's the general idea. You can come back and you can wipe anything else out that you don't want there. There's just a lot to remember. But that keeps it looking authentic. So let's get to the focal point here, okay? So we're going to repeat this. Now, I don't know if you can tell, but do you see how this side's a little darker? Because there is a tint of glaze over that, it's darkening that up, which is fine. Let's do this area and kind of work our way out. I didn't really do down here yet. I can do the whole panel at the bottom at one point. So let's focus around this piece. I think that would be really nice. Back into it. Wet. Let's go ahead and do the whole frame. Into the glaze. This may not be the best brush to get in there, but it's doing fine. Use whatever you like. Just swirling it in there, remembering we're going to wipe off a lot of the high points anyway. Notice how I'm not painting the whole panel. I just want to get this around. We're simulating collected time and dust that just couldn't, like if you wipe this off every day for 100 years, you wouldn't be able to get all the dirt out. So it's what would be left behind. Okay, and then we're going to do the corners, just a quick run of corners. Some of the paint's still not dry, but that's okay. Okay, French tip, that's next. just looking to soften those edges. What you're going to find is you got to start making decisions of how much of a vignette or soft edges do you want. And sometimes you don't want it to be so big, it's just like, it becomes the focal point. So like now it's starting to get just yuck. So I'm gonna wipe some of that off. Just give me, let's put some over here. If it's dry, like down below, you need to mist it because you want this vignette to be soft. If you can't soften it, it's too dry. Okay, so that's an initial run. I'm gonna come back in here and kind of erase. I like to call my wet rag an eraser sometimes. So I'm just gonna erase some of the extra glaze that went too much. Because sometimes you just don't know if you got too much. Now I'm gonna go back to my French tip, wipe it off, soften it out. Spray your brush if you have to. Because sometimes, I will tell you, if you start misting your glaze after you do this, it will leave spots, so be careful about that. So I'm just gonna soften this up again. I'm removing any brush stroke. Because this has a tapered, rounded edge, it's vignetting and softening those edges really well. Now we can come back with our wet rag and re-establish some of that buttercream and highlights right before your eyes. And maybe along this corner edge. I haven't used dirt yet, so let's try that. We're just gonna run the dirt. The dirt's gonna accentuate, and you put as much or a little of this as you want. Go up a little bit, maybe not. I wouldn't do the whole frame, but totally up to you. And soften that in. If you do not want your dirt to get into your blending brush, I'll call this the blending brush right now, then use something else to do that. But what do we think? I mean, look how crazy plain that looks compared to this. Once this starts to dry, you need to kind of leave it alone. There really isn't much you can do after a while but to paint over it. So get it as close as you're liking it and then leave it alone. Just like any other blending situation, right? Okay. Well, I'm going to keep taking this process all the way across and around. I'll bring out the details on the top, and we need to get the lower section done. So when this is done, the inside, if you wondered, is just literally just wood, and I'll clean that up and make that look nice. But I do highly recommend that you get your hands on some Would You Bend if you haven't before. We totally transformed this from boring to, wait, what is that? I want to buy it. And I'm excited about it. It doesn't really matter what the cabinet is for anymore. It's so beautiful. Why wouldn't you buy it? You'll figure out something to do with it later, right? So that's pretty cool. So I think I'll keep working on this a little bit tonight and get this all staged and looking great for you. I'm Aaron with Bowtie Treasures. I'm here in the Bowtie Treasures studio. It's always a pleasure to paint and hang out with you. If you're watching on replay, let us know. Be sure to check out the product soon. Head over to my website, bowtietreasures.com, and see what I've got. The links there for Dixie Belle, Would You Bend, even my Amazon shop in the shop area. That'd be really great. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good evening. Stay creative. Have a great weekend. We'll see y'all later.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.